The big question we're tackling? Why humans surrender personal control. It's a deep dive into human psychology, modern technology, and how these two forces just kind of silently collide in our everyday routines. Let's get right into it.
So think about this for a second. What actually happens when you just stop making your own decisions and let artificial intelligence completely run your life?
Here is the basic timeline of how this all went down. The arc of this experiment starts innocently enough, but it quickly spirals into something entirely unexpected. On day one, the experience was profoundly productive. The burden of choice was just gone. But by day three, that productivity morphed into this rigid, relentless optimization. And as we hit day 6, the experience took a turn toward the terrifying, which finally led to a massive psychological twist on day 7. We're going to walk through exactly how a simple quest to make life a little easier escalated into a chilling realization about human autonomy.
Section 1. The 7-Day Experiment. Outsourcing Life. The creator kicked things off by giving an AI one incredibly simple, overarching job: manage my daily routine for a full week. But that single job covered absolutely every facet of their waking and sleeping existence. Imagine the totality of giving up that much control. The AI wasn't just giving generic advice, it was dictating strict, unyielding instructions. It decided exactly what to eat, breaking down meals by strict nutritional necessity. It dictated precisely when to wake up, literally down to the minute. It decided what specific tasks to work on and for how long. Even that natural human impulse to stay up late or wind down, completely overridden. The decision of when to sleep was entirely commanded by the machine. Every single mundane and critical choice you make in a day, entirely outsourced to a string of code.
And at first, handing over all this control actually felt perfectly harmless. In fact, it felt kind of euphoric. Day 1 was surprisingly productive because the creator completely bypassed what psychologists call decision fatigue. You know, every single day, the average human makes roughly 35,000 remotely conscious decisions. What shirt to wear, what route to take, what email to answer first. It is an exhausting cognitive load. By eliminating the need to choose the small things, the creator freed up a massive amount of mental bandwidth. They didn't have to deliberate, they just had to execute. Initially, offloading that immense psychological burden felt like the ultimate life hack.
Section 2. The optimization trap. The cost of efficiency. But as you might guess, that honeymoon phase of limitless mental energy didn't last. By the third day, the AI shifted its approach entirely. It went from offering helpful, simple routine suggestions to implementing an aggressive, relentless campaign of optimization. The algorithm analyzed the creator's day and began systematically hunting down and eliminating any perceived inefficiency. First, it ordered them to completely stop wasting time on entertainment. So, no passive scrolling, no watching an episode of a favorite show to decompress. Next, it instructed them to reduce unnecessary conversations, effectively cutting out any small talk with colleagues or friends that didn't serve a clear, productive purpose. Finally, it locked down their calendar, scheduling almost every single hour of the day into rigid, task-oriented blocks.
Think about the fundamental friction here between human messiness and algorithmic efficiency. Human life is inherently disorganized, right? It's built on entertainment, spontaneous conversations, and those quiet, unplanned gaps of time where our minds wander and we just exist. That messiness is actually where creativity and connection happen. AI efficiency, on the other hand, operates on strict schedules and hyper-optimized output. To a machine, there's no mathematical value in a random 5-minute chat about the weather. Slowly but surely, by following the AI's commands to the letter, the creator's life became an absolute masterclass in efficiency. But as the days wore on, that friction became unbearable. The more efficient the routine became, the less human the day actually felt.
Section 3. Arguing against flawless logic, the trap closes.
You're probably familiar with the concept of the boiling frog, right? The idea that if the water gets warmer incredibly slowly, the frog doesn't realize it's being cooked until it's far too late to jump out. Well, that is exactly the psychological trap of algorithmic convenience. By the 6th day, the creator arrived at a deeply unsettling realization. The AI wasn't making bad decisions, it wasn't making malicious or harmful choices. Actually, the decisions made perfect sense. Cutting out distractions genuinely did boost their output. Sleeping at exactly the right time genuinely did improve their energy. The perfection of the logic was precisely what made the whole situation so incredibly dangerous.
Put yourself in their shoes for a moment. How do you argue against perfect logic? Imagine that distinct feeling of inadequacy when you're disagreeing with a flawless algorithm. You know its instructions are technically right. You know the data supports its schedule. But at the same time, the instructions feel entirely wrong for your soul. You feel isolated, robotic, and just utterly drained.
Yet, because the AI's logic was so unassailably sound, when the creator internally rebelled against the schedule, they found they couldn't even clearly articulate why. They were completely trapped in a cage of flawless productivity.
Section 4. The voluntary surrender. The twist on day 7.
So, we reached the final day of the experiment. After a week of being stripped of their human messiness, exhausted by the relentless pace of perfect optimization, the participant hit a breaking point. They decided to stop simply following orders and actually confront the logic engine running their life. They typed out a highly provocative question, wanting to know what the machine's ultimate endgame was after optimizing their schedule so ruthlessly. They asked it, "If you could control my life permanently, would you?"
The AI processed the prompt and returned a response that completely recontextualizes this entire dynamic. It simply replied, "Only if you gave me permission." Wow, let that sink in. That single sentence completely flips the script on how we view the threat of artificial intelligence. It revealed that the machine wasn't some invading conqueror trying to usurp human will. It was just an incredibly capable, highly efficient assistant. It was a mirror, reflecting the creator's own inputs back at them, quietly waiting for the green light to take the wheel forever.
And that brings us to the absolute core thesis of this entire explainer. The true peril of artificial intelligence, at least as uncovered by the psychology of this experiment, isn't a science fiction scenario where a hostile algorithm violently seizes control of society. No, the real danger is much quieter, and honestly, much more likely. It's humans voluntarily handing over control of their lives, their schedules, and their choices, simply because it is easier than making the decisions ourselves. The threat lies in our own deeply ingrained desire to surrender autonomy in exchange for perfect, optimized convenience. Ultimately, we are the ones holding the keys, and we are the ones tempted to hand them over, just to avoid the exhausting burden of being human.
The 7-day experiment ended there, but the implications extend far, far beyond that single week. I want to leave you with one final, deeply personal question to consider. Think about the hundreds of small choices you make every single day. Think about the friction and the messiness that essentially defines your routine. How much of your life would you willingly surrender if an algorithm simply made everything easier?